Marks another landmark. This is now the second longest government shutdown of any kind ever in the history of our country, and it's just shameful. Democrats keep making history, but they're doing it for all the wrong reasons. The contrast is the split screen, and I've referenced that at this podium a few times already, but I just think it's an important thing to point out, because that contrast between the two parties grows more glaring with each passing day, and you can look at all the evidence for yourself. There is, of course, a literal split screen every day. You've got Republicans and Democrats out all over the airwaves, burning them up, speaking directly to the American people. But you'll note that there's a key difference between the messages of the two sides. The Republicans are all repeating the same simple truth, and that is why that message is resonating with the American people, and that's what the polling indicates. At the same time, on the other side, the Democrats are doing their very best to obscure and create distractions from that simple truth. So the reason that we find it important to come out here every day and repeat again the same simple truth is because they're trying so hard to cover that up. But there's also a figurative split screen. There's a literal one, but it's figurative as well. And I just wanted to spend a moment this morning and talk with you about that. On one side, you have the Republican Party, the party that controls the White House, the Senate, and the House. We call that unified government. It's the party that won the popular vote in every single swing state and made deep inroads with voters new to the Republican base. And we received that mandate gratefully, and we went immediately to work. So since the election in November, just in the last 9.5 months of this Congress, which began in January, Republicans have delivered incredible results for the American people. And we could stand up here and spend an hour going through just the bullet points and highlights of all that, but we put a few on the handy chart over here. But just think of what's been accomplished in the last 9.5 months. A couple of things listed here. We passed the historic Working Families Tax Cut, one of the most landmark pieces of legislation ever passed by the U.S. Congress for the benefit of the American people. We slashed taxes for hardworking Americans, geared for the lower and middle class earners who needed that assistance. We cut hundreds of billions of dollars in fraud, waste, and abuse from government. We solved the border crisis. We are working now to solve the crime crisis in major cities around America. We strengthened Medicaid. We improved health care access, and we lowered premiums with our legislation. We have restored peace through strength, thanks be to God, and we are ending wars around the globe. And we've restored common sense to a government that sorely needed it. That's part of the mandate that was given to us by the American people in the fall. And most recently, we did our jobs, and we passed a clean, nonpartisan CR to keep the government open for the people. Now look on the other side of that figurative split screen as demonstrated here. The lights are out, it's all dark. Why? Because what the Democrats have accomplished in 9.5 months is a government shutdown. A couple other things sort of related to that. You know, they have made a lot of TikTok videos. We give them credit for that. They've also assaulted law enforcement officers. One of them's on trial for that. They've openly embraced and rallied with communists and socialists, most recently across the country on Saturday. They voted to raise taxes on millions of hardworking Americans at the worst possible time. They have voted against reducing fraud, waste, and abuse in government, and they have now voted, collectively, Democrats in Congress have voted 12 times to keep the government closed down. But it doesn't stop there. The Democrat shutdown is a glaring example of just how far the Democratic Party has strayed from common sense. Remember the simple truth here. It was over a month ago now that we passed, the Republicans passed the clean, short-term, continuing resolution. It's nonpartisan. No gimmicks, no tricks, no riders, no partisan Republican policy priorities added to that. It's 24 pages in length, as we've discussed so many times, and it is very, very simple. Why? Because it was a very simple good faith effort on our part to preserve our ability to keep negotiating on the full year funding bills. And of course, the other big issues facing the American people. So we wanted to keep the lights on. But what did the Democrats do? Instead of receiving that, voting for it as they have always done in the past, they broke from history and they rejected that. And they offered a counterproposal. Ours was a clean CR. We call theirs a dirty CR, and you all know why. Because they added $1.5 trillion in new spending that would be a mandate, including hundreds of billions of taxpayer dollars for health care for illegal aliens. Go to page 57, section 2141 of what they filed. They want to restore funding for left-wing pet projects in foreign countries. And I've given you a list of some of the crazy things that they would include in that. $500 million for liberal news outlets like NPR and PBS on the backs of taxpayers, and the removal, remember, they wanted to eliminate the $50 billion that Republicans got signed into law by President Trump on July 4th to prop up our rural hospitals. And here's the kicker. The Democrats can't even agree on what they want right now. If you polled congressional Democrats on what it would take to reopen the government, you would not get a uniform answer. Every reporter in the room, by the way, should be asking them that question. Democrats put together this haphazard grab bag of crazy leftist policy proposals when they knew that it would not be agreed upon, and they knew that it was clear that Republicans were working to do the responsible thing and offer a clean CR to fund the government. That's our most basic job here. In their desperation now, they're trying their very best to somehow blame Republicans for the forthcoming health care crisis that they themselves created. By way of just very quick review, for the record, because they're trying to obscure this as well. Let's remember the true origins of the boondoggle that is American health care under Obamacare. Democrats wrote that bill. They passed it into law without a single Republican vote. During the COVID pandemic, Democrats created temporary Obamacare credits, again, without a single Republican vote. Democrats then voted to extend those credits. They set the expiration date on it. And then when they held the majority in the Senate, it was Democrats who chose not to extend those credits beyond this year. Now, as we approach their own self-imposed expiration date, now they are breathlessly insisting to you, and on all the interviews, that somehow it's a Republican crisis. Give me a break. The facts are the facts. We are up here sharing the simple facts and truth. And as John Adams said, facts are stubborn things. Democrats are the ones who manufactured this entire situation without a single Republican vote, and now, when the chickens are coming back home to roost, they're trying to blame the other team. It is utter nonsense, and you should call them on it. That's the job of the press, and continue to do that every single time. Clearly, this is a complicated issue, this whole healthcare subsidy thing, and there's hundreds of different views on it, as I've explained. So Republicans cannot and will not solve it in a backroom deal. Chuck Schumer has been suggesting that 4 leaders should go into a smoke-filled back room like they used to do in the old days and create this solution. It's not a possible thing to do. It was never appropriate. It's not possible to put on a continuing resolution because it's such a complex issue. Issues of this magnitude deserve deep thought and deliberation. That's how this system works here. And as soon as Chuck Schumer reopens the government, all of our members will have an opportunity to engage in the very important discussion of how to make Obamacare affordable. But we won't engage in Democrats' hostage-taking, nor will we pay a ransom. We certainly won't engage in their unserious proposals as long as Democrats continue to act like unserious lawmakers. I'm just going to say this morning, enough is enough. Now, with us today with the leadership team are 2 leaders in Congress. One is Chairman Bruce Westerman of the Committee on Natural Resources. And we also have with us Congressman Mike Simpson, who's our lead appropriator for the Department of the Interior, which funds and oversees our beautiful national parks. Both are here today to share an update on how this shutdown impacts all those operations. But I'll note, as I bring Chairman Westerman up first, that when President Obama shut down the national parks and the National Mall in 2013, is a real hardship for the American people. And the Trump administration is trying to handle this differently. They've gone to great lengths as much as they can to protect Americans' access to our national parks, while Democrats continue to hold government funding hostage. They'll have more to share on that, the experts on the subject, and I'm happy to bring them up now. Thank both these gentlemen for their hard work. I'll turn it over to Chairman Westerman. Yeah, bud.
Thank you, Speaker, and good morning, everyone. First off, I want to say thank you to the thousands of federal employees across the country that are still in the field, going to work every day, oftentimes without pay, to do their jobs to steward and protect our public lands, from Park Service to Forest Service Rangers to Fish and Wildlife officers and all the other management and support staff doing their jobs in uncertain times. Thank you. Leadership starts at the top, and I commend President Trump, Secretary Burgum, and Secretary Rollins for the job that they've done and for their leadership in keeping our public lands open to the public. It's not always been that way during shutdowns, as the Speaker mentioned. But this can't continue indefinitely. Despite all the extraordinary efforts being made, at some point, without funding, the public lands will not be accessible to the public. The longer this unnecessary shutdown lasts, the more negative consequences that we'll start to see. Without regular staffing, litter will pile up and park ecosystems will be affected. It's fall time. It's a wonderful time of the year. It's a wonderful time to visit our public lands with crisp weather and beautiful foliage. Fall, personally, is my favorite time of the year, and it's that way for many Americans who enjoy being outdoors. When Americans save up to visit a national park or a national forest, that experience should exceed their expectations. Families visiting our parks are now being met with disappointment as visitor services and experiences are reduced. As the shutdown drags on, families will cancel their vacations or day trips to our public lands. It's hunting season all across the country, different types of hunting seasons across the country, and public lands are oftentimes the only place that people who like to hunt and fish have to recreate. For everyone's sake, and who uses and appreciates our public lands and appreciates our public employees, it's time to end the shutdown. You know, as we look here in Washington, the negative effects of the shutdown and what that will have on public lands, I just want to highlight one issue, and that's the Great American Outdoors Act. This was a bipartisan bill that was signed into law by President Trump during his first term. It's something that there's a lot of bipartisan support to work on right now. But, you know, tomorrow we had planned a field hearing on the Great American Outdoors Act so that we could reauthorize this piece of legislation that's putting as much as $1.9 billion a year into maintenance backlog on our federal lands. I've had an opportunity to visit many of these parks and to see the wonderful work that's being done. It's something that Republicans, Democrats, and independents, I think, all appreciate the fact that we're taking care of our public lands. But Congress is not here working on those issues because of the shutdown. And we need to get back to work. We need to start putting the American people first and putting these federal lands and giving them the place and the position that they deserve. And we simply can't do that when the government is shut down. So enough of the shutdown. Let's get it over, get people be where they're paid, where they're going out and doing their jobs that they want to do, and getting America back in the position we need to be in and getting Congress back and functioning. And with that, I'll turn it over to my friend Mike Simpson from the Appropriations Committee.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, and thanks to the leadership for inviting Chairman Westerman and I here to talk a little bit about the impact that this shutdown is having on our public lands and our national parks. I couldn't agree more with House leadership, their position on this shutdown. House Republicans, as you are well aware, did not shut the government down. We voted to open the government and not shut it down. It's the House Democrats that and the Senate Democrats that are voting to shut the government down and keep it shut. We gave them exactly what they wanted. We gave them a clean CR, no gimmicks, no policy writers, short term. There were people who wanted this to go on until January or February. They wanted a short term. That's exactly what they got. And then surprisingly, they reversed themselves and voted against it. This shutdown is causing and potentially causing even more damage for the American people. While the Democrats in their press conferences say how much they care about the American people, that they're fighting for the American people, when you look at the impacts of what they're doing, clearly the evidence is the reverse of that. They don't really care about the American people. What they care about is keeping their leadership positions, and that's exactly what's happening. They say that they care about federal employees. The fact that we have furloughed federal employees that aren't getting paid, clearly the evidence shows that they don't really care about federal employees. This is about two leaders trying to keep their jobs, and that's unfortunate. You know, our national parks are our historic treasures. Ken Burns called them America's best idea. The Park Service goes to great lengths to protect our resources, and the Park Police provide critical safety measures for our visitors in our national parks. Under the Democrats' shutdown, the lack of funding for staff and maintenance projects could cause irreparable damage to these national parks. Some people say, well, it's the end of the year. Most of the national parks are visited during the summer. Last year, we had 331 million people visit our national parks. They are truly America's best idea, in my view. In October of last year, we had 28 million people visit our national parks. 28 million. In just October. I agree with Chairman Westerman. I think it's the best time of year to visit our national parks with the colors changing, warm days, cool nights, all that kind of stuff. I love Yellowstone in October and actually in November when you get there and you see the first snowfall and a few things like that. It's a great time to visit our national parks. But we have families who have been planning to visit our national parks for years sometimes, putting aside the resources, that are now canceling their visit to our national parks because of this shutdown and the impact that it could potentially have on their vacations. Unfortunately, that's very damaging. We know many people who are canceling their trips. But this administration is trying to keep the national parks open. Unlike the Obama administration when there was a shutdown, they actually put tape around the open air monument, the World War II monument, so that people that came in, veterans that came in to see it, couldn't visit the open air monument. They tried to make it as painful as possible. This administration is trying to do just the reverse. They're trying to keep the parks open, they're trying to keep our public lands open, and trying to make it as least painful as possible. But it's going to get more and more painful as time goes on. I applaud this administration for their efforts to mitigate the impacts that this is going to have on our national parks. As I said, 28 million Americans visited our national parks in October, 24 million in November. So they were used all year long, whether it's just the great parks out in the west, Yellowstone and Glacier and Yosemite and Grand Canyon, or whether it's the Everglades in Florida or Arcadia in Maine. These national parks are a treasure to America, and our Americans love them. There's one other thing I would like to say. You've all heard us as appropriators, and actually as all Republicans have said, we need to get back to regular order. And you all know what that means. What it means for those listening is that we pass bills, individual bills, we bring them to the floor, we go through the amendment process, we go to conference, and then we bring a conference report back between us and the Senate. This leadership team, we haven't done that for about 15 to 20 years. This leadership team that you see behind me has moved us in that direction more than any team I've seen ever. We are actually ready to go to conference with 3 bills right now that have passed the House. The Speaker plans on bringing, and the Majority Leader plan on bringing up the rest of the appropriation bills and trying to get back to regular order. You can't do that overnight. It takes some time. But they have moved us in that direction, and we will get back to doing it the way that it should be done, where we do individual bills, we conference them with the Senate, we bring them back to pass them. So I applaud this leadership team and the efforts that they're making, but we can't do it while the government is shut down. We need to open this government back up. And yes, there are many other issues that need to be debated and worked on. We can't work on those. As Westerman said, Chairman Westerman, can't have hearings and that type of stuff when we're shut down. So we need to change that. We need to open this government back up, get rid of this stupid Schumer shutdown, the 3 S's, I guess, and let us do our job. That's why we're here. I get a kick out of listening to the press conference from some of my senators saying, well, the House has been on vacation for a month. This is not what I call a vacation. If they think showing up once a day and casting 1 vote is work, they need to come over to the House side and see what we're doing. We're working with our constituents. We're out talking to people. And we're back in Washington doing our job too. So we'll continue to do our job, end this stupid Schumer shutdown, and let us do our job. And now I'd turn it over to the great Majority Leader of the House, Steve Scalise. Thanks.
Thank you, Chairman Simpson. Preach it. Appreciate as well Chairman Westerman and the work that these great chairmen continue to do to try to keep government functioning as best as possible in the midst of very difficult circumstances that Democrats themselves created. I do think it's important, as we're at this point, that we look back over the last 9 months and really look at the difference between the two parties in Washington. And Speaker Johnson laid a lot of this out. You can see the poster. But just think about what happens every day here. Republicans wake up every day working with President Trump to try to get this country moving forward, to address and fix problems that, frankly, were created by Democrats. And what does the Democrat Party do every single day? Every day they wake up and just see what President Trump is doing and find a way to oppose it. Doesn't matter what he wants to do. President Trump came into office day one, said he's going to secure America's border, was actually elected on it overwhelmingly. 80% of the American people agreed with President Trump and House and Senate Republicans who said that should be a priority. And we actually set course to do that. And we have done just that, secured America's border. And what did Democrats do every step of the way? They said no. They voted no to secure the border. President Trump said, we're going to try to get our economy back on track. We're going to stabilize the tax code so that no American family has a tax increase. Every American family was facing, on most cases, a 30+% tax increase. President Trump said no family deserves that. Let's stabilize the tax code and have no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, so blue-collar workers can actually have more money in their pockets and empower them to do more for their families. President Trump said that. We agreed. What did every Democrat in Washington say? No. They didn't just say no. They all voted no to that. President Trump said we ought to produce more energy in America. Chairman Westerman was at the heart of a lot of those policies. You actually had to change policy to do it. So Congress and President Trump worked together to lower prices at the pump. Every American family today is benefiting from those great policies because they're paying less when they fill up their car every single day. And you would think, gee whiz, that would be a good area where all people in Washington, Republicans and Democrats, come together. But because President Trump said yes, what did every Democrat say? No. Every Democrat voted no to lower your energy costs just because President Trump said he was going to do it. President Trump also said, I'm going to do something that no president in decades had done, and that is modernize our air traffic control system. It seemed like at least once a month at some airport in America, big, medium, small, there was a near miss where an airplane almost ran into another airplane. In some cases, did tap or run into another airplane. And it was happening because our air traffic control system is still based on 1980s technology. I was actually a student of computer science and learned how to program computers in the 1980s when we had floppy drive disks. You have to Google what that is today because we don't even have them anymore, except where? At all of our major airports across America. LaGuardia running on floppy disks from the 1980s. And President Trump said, we ought to do something about that. We ought to fix it. How about we modernize our air traffic control system? Now, this isn't a new idea. You would say, well, gee whiz, why wasn't that done in the 90s, in the 2000s? For goodness sake, the computing technology on this iPhone is more modern and capability and competently technologically advanced than what a lot of our air traffic control systems are using, except it costs money. It costs billions of dollars. And so previous presidents, Republican and Democrat alike, just didn't have the time or the priority to find the money to go modernize that system. And so some days flights across America would get canceled. It was happening over and over again, at least once a month, anywhere in America, disrupting the lives of American families who just kind of figured, I guess that's just the way it is because government's in charge. Well, Donald Trump said, all right, we're going to change things because that's what Donald Trump does. He finds a problem and he works to fix them. And again, you would think everybody would come together and say yes, except because Donald Trump said it, every Democrat had to say no. And in fact, when we put it in the bill, every Democrat voted no against modernizing our air traffic control system just because it was Donald Trump's idea. This is a sick and twisted and lost, rudderless ship of a political party. That's who we're dealing with. When the press asks, gee whiz, is there something else you can offer these folks in a negotiation to try to get this off a ramp and find a better way to get the government open? The speaker's told you over and over again, there's something we could negotiate with. But when the party is so rudderless and morally bankrupt that just because President Trump has an idea, the Democrat Party's visceral reaction is just to say no. Right now, he's actually renovating the White House, building a new ballroom. I mean, anybody that's ever been to a state dinner, like the White House has been renovated over and over again. There wouldn't be an Oval Office if there weren't renovations by previous presidents. The West Wing was a renovation by previous presidents to make it better for all future presidents. And that's what Donald Trump is doing. He won't enjoy most of the time of that, but future presidents will, because in the future, when you have a state dinner, when we bring world leaders in, which we do all the time, and you host a president of a foreign country, a prime minister. I've been to some of those. Some of you have covered them. Where do you go? You walk outside of the White House in the rain sometimes to go to a tent, to host a world leader. That's what we do today. And President Trump said that's a disgrace. How about we do better? And not only did he say we were going to build a great ballroom that we can host these events, he funded it privately. He put up some of his own money, and you would think, well, gee whiz, at least they can agree to that. It's not even taxpayer money. It's going to be a permanent renovation that'll enhance the White House for all future presidents. What does every Democrat say? They say no to that. They say no to everything he does because they just are angry about the results of the election from last year. They're upset with the American people because the American people said we want somebody who's going to wake up every day and say, how can I solve Middle East peace? I'm not going to take no for an answer. I'm not going to take the old failed ways of doing it for an answer. I'm going to figure out a way to go do it, and he does. How do I work to help improve the lives of Americans? He goes and finds a way to say yes, and because he says yes, Democrats find a way to say no. It's a disgrace. It's a disgrace, but now it's having real impacts on American families. With this shutdown, it's not just their everyday feud with Donald Trump. It's become now a problem where American families are paying the price. Let's talk about what just came out a couple of days ago. The USDA sent a letter to all of the states saying, quote, if the current lapse in appropriations continues, there will be insufficient funds to pay full November SNAP benefits for approximately 42 million individuals across the nation. 42 million people across America are going to suffer from those SNAP benefits that they count on right before Thanksgiving because Chuck Schumer and Democrats are so angry with President Trump that they just want to find a way to say no. And when they say no, now they're saying no to 42 million families who will go without food so that Democrats can show their far-left radical base that they're fighting President Trump, as if they've got to show off to some radicals who come march on the mall and hold up effigies to murder the president, 8647. You saw the signs. Over 800,000 people in my home state of Louisiana get food benefits through the SNAP program. Yesterday we talked about Senator Ossoff, who one Senate aide said on the record to The Hill in that article, said that he's more afraid of if he votes to open the government, he will lose the clicks he's getting from foreign states and the small donor donations that add to about $3 million. That's what he's afraid of. Well, let's look at Senator Ossoff's state of Georgia. 1.4 million people are going to face losing SNAP benefits just in his home state. Now, does he want each of them to send about $2 each to him to make up for the $3 million he's getting from California, in Illinois, in New York, in Minnesota? Is that what it's going to take? Because he's causing pain on people in his home state by voting no. Maybe he needs to go on vacation instead of showing up every day, as Senator Simpson said, showing up to vote no to inflict pain on 1.4 million people in the state of Georgia. That's what he's doing. So this is having real impacts on real families. We're here working, and the House has passed the bill, despite 99% of Democrats voting no. Again, President Trump said yes, they say no, doesn't matter what the issue is. And the American people are sick and tired of it because now it's affecting them. Over 40 million low-income Americans are the ones who qualify for SNAP benefits. They're going to be denied food starting in November, according to USDA, because these guys just want to show their far-left radical base that they hate President Trump. It's disgusting, and it's having a devastating impact on millions and millions of Americans across the country. Our whip, Tom Emmer.
Well, Democrats have voted 12 times to shut the government down. 12 times. And now they're refusing to support legislation that would help alleviate some of the pain they've inflicted on the American people as a result. Earlier this week, the minority leader in the House said he opposes legislation that would pay our troops and essential federal workers during the Democrat shutdown. This includes Border Patrol agents, air traffic controllers, TSA agents, and more. All of whom, by the way, as these speakers have pointed out, are showing up to work without receiving a paycheck while the Democrats play their shutdown games. Some would say the soon-to-be former House Democrat leader went so far as to call this legislation, quote, a political ploy. Well, I'll tell you what a political ploy is. Holding the American people hostage just so you can avoid getting the guillotine from your far left base. That's a political ploy. The good news is this madness can end immediately if 5 Senate Democrats would grow a spine, stand up to the radicals in their party, and pass our clean CR and reopen the government. It contains no partisan policy riders, no gimmicks. In fact, it's the same spending levels that Democrats supported just 6 months ago and that you've heard repeatedly they passed 13 times under the Biden administration. We have made this plain and simple. We have made the process as plain and simple as possible. To our Senate Democrat colleagues, it's not too late to do the right and reasonable thing. Pass our CR and reopen the government for the people that you are actually elected to serve. Let's get it done today. With that, Lisa McClain.
Thank you, and good morning, everybody. And I think the leader said it best. You know, I think you're right. President Trump could have the cure for cancer, and the Democrats would vote no because it came from President Trump. We have to start looking at the policies, and I think right here explains everything. I mean, Democrats have been playing political theater for 3 weeks with Republicans continuing to work and deliver some results. And here are, again, some examples, some facts. Right? Just a few days ago, Congressman Ryan McKenzie visited a Head Start program that relies on federal funding and delivered food to TSA agents. Congressman Mark Alford visited multiple rural hospitals and health care centers. And Congressman Jeff Crank met with credit unions to ask for flexibility with federal employees who are actually missing paychecks. Real families are paying the price for the Democrats' shutdown. And what are the Democrats leveraging the shutdown to get? Ask yourself, what is their leverage? More wasteful spending? While Republicans are working at home, Democrats are fighting for weird programs, like halfway across the world, right? Think about it. Just think about it for a minute. They're sacrificing Head Start right down your street to produce Iraq Sesame Street. So they'd rather spend money on Iraqi Sesame Street than fund your Head Start programs. But President Trump is, you know, the bad guy for putting America first. Scratch your head on that one. They're risking the safety of American skies for LGBTQI programs in the Balkans. Right? Putting the Balkans over the safety of our skies. They're jeopardizing millions of paychecks to Americans to support woke programs in Honduras, Zimbabwe, Mexico, Venezuela, and Lebanon. Okay. I don't know about you, but I think that is absolutely shameful. Let me be clear. A shutdown should never be used as leverage for more wasteful spending, and especially when that spending isn't here on American soil. But that's what Schumer's dirty deal is doing. You heard me talking about it the other day, and you heard our speaker talk about it, the split screen, clean CR to work for the American people, Schumer's dirty deal CR to work for everybody but the American people. Wasteful spending at the expense of American people is not what this shutdown is about. But I want to let the American people know Republicans will not cave to Schumer's dirty deal. We will not cave to their wasteful spending. We will hold the line, and we will. I promise you, we will continue to work for the men and women and families who serve, protect, and build our great nation. Thank you.
Questions? Chad, go ahead.
Good morning, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Can you characterize some of the dissonance inside your conference about the strategies that Republicans have? There was some criticism on the call yesterday saying that this shutdown strategy is old and Republicans need to have a new tack.
That was the word that was used. There was one member of the Republican conference. These are supposed to be, confidential off-the-record calls among colleagues, but some of you guys listen in, and I make a pleading at the beginning of every call that you wouldn't do that and wouldn't characterize it, but whoever the leak is, whatever. Beth Van Dyne was quoted. Beth is a dear friend. We've had lots of conversations about this. She was not complaining. It was not dissonance, Chad. She was pointing out that we have a lot of important work to do before the end of the year, and it was a very pleasant, constructive comment about strategy. You all have heard me say from the podium a few times, we're not pursuing a political strategy here. We're not. We're just simply trying to get the government open, and that's why the nonpartisan clean CR was the obvious vehicle to do that. And so we're not making political calculations here. We're making calculations on behalf of the American people. How can we get the government operating as soon as possible so they can get all these vital services and paychecks restored? And that's what this is about. So, I mean, if you called each individual House Republican right now, we're almost 100%, probably 99.8%, okay, of every House Republican understands exactly why we're in the situation we're in. Are we all anxious to get back to work here for regular legislative session? Absolutely.
She wanted the House to come back from the session.
No, that's not what she said. If you had listened in directly on the phone, you would know. You can ask her about it. No, she said the message is feeling old, and I said, you know what, Beth, you're right, because we come out here and say the same thing over and over every day, but there is a method to that madness, because as I explained in my comments here, we have to repeat the simple truth over and over. Why? Because the Democrats are in an all-out assault on the truth. They're trying to obscure and distract, and you see all the different shiny objects they're trying to make everyone look at every day. I will tell you that the best evidence I have for you this morning, so that you know that the Democrats caused this shutdown, is because if the Republicans were responsible for this shutdown, that would lead the news in every mainstream media outlet every single night. It would be top fold of every newspaper on the front page every single day. Some of the mainstream media outlets aren't even covering it right now. Why? Because they're trying to give cover to the Democrats who have caused this. I mean, look, everybody knows the facts. The American people are not stupid. And we're in here every day appealing to their common sense and relaying the facts, and thankfully those facts are saturating.
Mr. Speaker, I do want to point out that the shutdowns led the Today Show for about the last 2 weeks.
Oh, good. Thank you for that. Okay, thank you, Today Show. Thank you.
Make sure you're clear about that.
Thank you.
Secondarily, some of your Republican colleagues have raised concerns about the Trump administration opening up the market to Argentinian beef farmers, saying that it could prioritize them over American beef farmers. What do you say to your Republican colleagues about that move by the administration, and what are you doing as a Republican Congress to help American farmers, beef farmers in particular?
Well, we're doing a lot of work. We had some discussion on that yesterday, and I don't know the latest developments, but I can tell you there have been some over the last 24 hours. Harriet Hageman is one of the members of Congress from Wyoming, and she has lots of cattle ranchers and was articulating some of their thoughts and ideas, and she was connected to USTR and to the White House. And they're having those thoughtful discussions. The White House doesn't want any unintended consequences. What they're trying to do is improve the lives of everyday Americans, make our economy work again, and make sure that we are treated fairly by trading partners around the world. And there's lots of complications and a lot of moving parts when you're talking about trade agreements, renegotiating old trade agreements between, over 100 nations all at once. But they've done an extraordinary job, and they're working to fine-tune all those details, and you'd have to direct specific questions about it to the White House, because I don't really know. Yes, ma'am.
Leader Thune said it's time for the House to start thinking about coming back and passing a longer-term CR. How long should the next CR go until, and would you be open to a year-long CR?
No, I'm not sure that's what he said. I mean, he and I visited yesterday for about an hour, and Leader Thune and I are 100% aligned on all of this, as we are with the president. In fact, Leader Thune and I spent some time with the president on the phone yesterday about all this, and I was with the president in the White House the night before for a couple of hours. What we're talking about is that obviously the calendar is being eaten up by all this political nonsense by the Democrats. And I used the word, it's getting a little dicey in here yesterday. Some of you quoted, Chad quoted me, I saw it this morning. I don't know how else to describe it. Look, we're running out of time to do very important, necessary things. And as Mike Simpson, Chairman Simpson pointed out here earlier, as one of the lead appropriators, chairman of one of those subcommittees, he noted that the date of November 21 was decided upon by the experts in the field, the appropriators themselves, in a bipartisan agreement. They agreed they needed 7 more weeks. Some people, as Chairman Simpson noted, some people wanted the CR to go all the way into the middle of next year, and there was all sorts of varying opinions. But the Republicans and Democrats on the Appropriations Committee came together and agreed on that appropriate date. But it was calculated to allow enough time to finish the job. I think all of them, when they decided upon that date, were in good faith. And they said, and the Democrats said to us, please make it clean. Please don't add Republican priorities, because then we can get the job done. We did exactly that. We have been in good faith every single day on this, and they are eating up the clock. So we're getting closer to November. It is going to be more and more difficult with each passing hour to get all the appropriations done on time. We acknowledge that, but we have to decide this on a day-by-day basis.
Last question.
Yes, ma'am. Second row, right here. Yeah.
How comfortable are you with the president apparently seeking $230 million from the Department of Justice?
I don't know the details about that. I've just read it. I didn't talk with him about that. I know that he believes he's owed that reimbursement. What I heard yesterday was if he receives it, he was going to consider giving it to charity. I mean, he doesn't need those proceeds. But we're for the rule of law. We're for what is just and right. And it's just absurd that, I mean, as has been noted here several times this morning, they attack him for everything he does. It doesn't matter what it is. This whole dust-up about the White House, just by way of quick review, because I'm an amateur historian, you'll understand, the White House has been renovated many times over the years, you understand. I mean, it was built between 1792 and 1800, right? The British burned it down practically in 1814, and then they rebuilt it in the early 1820s. And ever since, like, we've had many presidents renovate and add things to the White House. Teddy Roosevelt built the whole West Wing. Who was it? FDR, with Taft, I think, added the Oval Office. FDR made additions. I mean, Truman ripped everything up to put a bowling alley in. FDR had added the swimming pool, I think. Barack Obama added a basketball court. President Trump's going to add the greatest improvement to the White House in the history of the building since it was originally constructed in 1800. The ballroom is going to be glorious. It's going to be used for everybody. And by the way, hey, Democrats, if you win the White House back, you get to use it too. This is for the American people, and he's using private funds to do it. How in the world could they oppose that? The only logical reason is because they have Trump derangement syndrome, and that's what explains a lot of this. 2 things. They want to oppose the president, and Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries are scared that they're going to lose their jobs. We all know that. I've said it over and over. It is an objective fact, and you can see it themselves. I wish that you guys would chase them down and call them up and ask them what it is they're demanding. This madness in the counterproposal, what I told you about, is the offer still on the table? They can't even articulate what they want. You know why? Because this was never about a solution on health care or anything else. This was about a spectacle. It was about a political distraction, and it was so that they could show a fight to the Marxist left in the Democratic Party. Look at the split screen. I'll leave you with that. Thanks so much.